I think it was really fruitful, interesting discussions around the tables, and I hope you had a good night, good evening, all of you. I don't know, are you tired today,
Yes.
After this night? You are? Maybe a bit late for some of you. But I think a very good start of the day is to listen to some piano music. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. So maybe of you have played or are maybe playing the piano, but I think very few of you have made it in the shape of a staircase. But that was exactly what happened in the fall of 2009 in Stockholm. And my name is Marcus Thomas Folk, and I'm the head of communications of Volkswagen in Sweden. I've been working in our company since 2002 when I joined Audi as a PR manager. But since some years now, I'm responsible for communication, both for the Volkswagen brand and for the Volkswagen Group in Sweden. And I'm very happy to be invited here, thank you Morten for that, to talk about a project that we made in Sweden that gained a huge interest, not only in Sweden, but also on a global level. And that is the Speed Camera Lottery and the Fun Theory. That was a project that I also was part of, and it is one of the projects that I have been most proud of, or it has been maybe the most exciting I've been doing in my whole career. And I will try to start to explain everything from the start, how it all began, so you can understand how everything is connected to each other. So we go back to 2009. Volkswagen was about to launch some new models, some new cars, the Blue Motion cars. They were low emission vehicles, diesel vehicles. You had the Polo Blue Motion, you had the Golf and the Passat Blue Motion. And those were considered to be among the most fuel efficient cars on the market at that time. But I don't know if you remember that, but 10, 15 years ago, environmental friendly cars were considered to be maybe not so exciting, perhaps a little bit boring even. We wanted to change this. We wanted to show that it doesn't have to be this way. So we turned to our agency. We worked with DDB at that time, we still do it, and tried to find out how could we communicate something that could make people believe that it's fun to drive an environmentally friendly car. These cars, they were no rockets in any way, but they were well equipped and had a good performance. So that was the start of the Fun Theory. With the help of different examples and films, we wanted to show that it's easier to change your behavior to the better if it's fun to do it. So after a lot of work between us and the agency, we had three main ideas of experiments and films. And the first one was the one you just saw, the piano staircase. And here we wanted to encourage people to take the staircase instead of the escalator. And we thought if we made the staircase a little bit more fun, maybe people would choose it instead of the escalator. And it's obviously much better from a health perspective to walk the steps. So we choose a subway in the city of Stockholm. I don't know if you have been to Stockholm, but this one was located at Odenplan. It's very close to the city center of Stockholm. And we started this project in September 2009. And then we had another example, and that was the world's deepest trash bin. With this innovation, we wanted to encourage people to throw their garbage in this bin. And when doing so, a funny sound was played. It sounded almost like the trash was falling a long way to the other side of the earth. So let's have a look at that one. And then there was a third example, and that was the Bottle Bank Arcade. And here we wanted people to throw their empty bottles for recycling in this bottle bank that worked like a gaming machine. And of course I have a film with this as well. Okay, three quite funny films. And the common idea was that all these examples should show that if it's fun to do something. It's easier to change your behavior. And we wanted to link this message to our marketing of our low-emission Blue Motion cars. So, how do you think it worked with these kind of examples? Well, I would say much better than we ever could dream of. As you saw in the film, 66% more people than normal choose to take the staircase instead of the escalator. And that's quite a big thing. But PR-wise, the success was tremendous. We got coverage all around Sweden, and more than 600,000 people saw the video with the piano staircase. But what was not so expected from us was that it got coverage all over the world. So the campaign was spread in newspapers like LA Times, CNN, Discovery, Daily Mail, La Repubblica, and even Dr. Phil mentioned it in his TV show. That's something. The visits at their website at that time, Volkswagen.se, increased with more than 50%. But maybe the most astonishing result was that the video with the piano staircase was at that time the most spread, the most shared video on YouTube in the world. And it was even the 11th most shared video in the viral history. So it was crazy, something we never could have dreamt of. And the campaign was also rewarded at many occasions. And the one we were most proud of was the Grand Prix at Cannes Lions in 2010. And here you see some people from DDB who are in Cannes to receive the award. So the success with this, what we did in 2009, convinced us that we had found something special, something that people really could relate to. And we were thinking about how to take the next step in this. So we decided to start up the Fun Theory Scholarship, or the Fun Theory Award. The idea with this one was to encourage people to send in their own ideas of how fun can change behavior to the better. And the winner was going to receive a check of 25,000 Swedish kronor, that's around 2,500 euros. But also our promise that we should test this idea in real life as well. So the response was extremely good, and we got more than 700 contributions, not only from Sweden, but from 35 countries all over the world. And we had a hard time to pick the winner. There were so many good ideas coming in. But one was something extra. And that was sent in by the American citizen Kevin Richardson from California. Here you see him together with Åke Lundberg, who was our marketing manager at that time. He was also one of the founders of the Fun Theory. I don't know about you, but it has happened to me that I'm being caught speeding. No way, no, it never happened to anybody here, I hope. But it's okay, it's nothing that I'm proud of, and it's not a really nice situation. And to be honest, there are big risks involved in speeding, in going too fast. I mean, the risk of accidents is increasing, obviously, the faster you drive. So how to prevent people from speeding? Well, Kevin Richardson, he wanted to turn everything around. And instead of giving a fine, giving a reward to people who are keeping the speed limit. So he created the Speed Camera Lottery. And here it is.
Hi, I'm Kevin Richardson. I'm the winner of Volkswagen's Fun Theory Award. My idea was the Speed Camera Lottery. Could we get people to pay the speed limit for fun? I really believe that fun can change human behavior for the better, and I was really thrilled to see that my idea, which started as a scribble submitted into this competition, might even become reality. camera lottery would do two things. One, it would photograph speeders, give them a citation, and that money goes in a pot. But if you're obeying the law, your picture will also get snapped. You'll be entered into a lottery and win some of that money from those speeders.
Jag kör alltid lagligt, men tvekar på vem vinner.
Det är en bra positiv grej det där. Kör lagligt och tjäna deg, det är perfekt.
The speed camera lottery was a great idea, and not only we at Volkswagen in Sweden thought that it was really worth to give it a try, but we thought that we needed a partner in this, someone who could add knowledge and research based on data from research. So we were thinking about who to turn to. We had several options, but we decided to go for the National Board of Road Safety in Sweden, called NTF in Swedish. And they were really also enthusiastic about this idea. So we decided to test it together, and we did it at a street in Stockholm in the fall of 2010. And this place was right in the middle of the city of Stockholm. And before we could start everything, we needed to do a lot of things. First, we turned to an inventor who helped us to create this special speed camera, of course. And the experts on the National Board of Road Safety, they helped us with all data that was needed for doing it. But we also went to the police to get the approval to do this, and we also got it, as you can see. Very, very good of them to be brave enough to give us the approval for this special project. And during this period, we activated social media and targeted also our special Facebook page to reach people in the neighborhood, to informing them about what was going on. And as you saw in the video, almost 25,000 people or cars were passing by our speed camera. And it led also to a decrease of the speed with 22%. And that is quite a big change. And yeah, the results of this that we made in Stockholm, we thought they were so good. So we wanted to take the speed camera out to other cities as well. So we created the road tour. We were going to visit 5 cities in the spring of 2011. So we worked out the plan where we took a lot of actions in each city. Of course, we also here needed the police approval to do this in every place. But we also arranged meetings with local politicians to raise the issue about speeding. And we started a blog, we used social media, and we also invited local media. And we made measurements before the project, so we could be able to track the results after it was done. And each city, we were present with the camera for 3 days. And after the experiment, we communicated the results to the local media, and we also gave a prize check to a winner in each place of 10,000 Swedish kronor. So what about the result of this campaign in these 5 cities? Yeah, according to the measurements we made before and after the visits in the cities, the average speed on these roads was decreased with 8%. And that means, theoretically, that the number of accidents are decreasing with 16%. It also means that the severe injured decrease with 24%. And the fatal accidents are going down with 32% at these roads with this kind of change of speed. Also worth to mention is the reach that we created. We got 62 articles and a reach of 6.3 million, and that was a PR value of almost 2 million SEK. And yeah, time is going fast, not only when I'm standing here, but also since we did this project. It's more than 12 years since we tested the speed camera lottery in Sweden. And we are really grateful that Kevin Richardson, Kevin, I think you're looking at this right now, so thank you, Kevin, for helping us with this great idea. But since Kevin and I are still in contact, I asked him to send us a little greeting from his home in California. So here you are.
Welcome to Copenhagen. I'm happy you wanted to feature my idea, the Speed Camera Lottery. My first time in Copenhagen was over 20 years ago. I still remember the fun, welcoming people. Wanting to apply my media and story background to something impactful, in 2010 I found myself the winner of the Volkswagen Fun Theory contest. The Speed Camera Lottery is a mobility narrative, harnessing beliefs, storytelling, fun, and technology to upend our perceived fixity of things, to solve a problem. It's one mobility narrative. Your car could be a lunchroom, a place to listen to books, or discover new parts of town or the countryside, a place to nap or meditate, a home if you haven't any, a way to meet lovers and friends, bring a child to school or to the hospital, visit an aging parent, attend a wedding. As travel becomes cleaner, safer, adaptive, and more environmentally friendly, you show up embodying those same attitudes. You, your car, and the planet have never been more intertwined. So if you remember one thing, as we change mobility, mobility is changing us too. There's a saying, no man is so tall that he need never stretch, and none so small that he need never stoop. So while you're in Copenhagen, let down your guard and take the Volkswagen Fun Theory Challenge. Can you change human behavior for the better through fun? Talk.
Thank you, Kevin, for those words. So coming to a conclusion now of my speech, can fun really change the behavior to the better? Did we prove this with the fun theory? I would say clearly yes, and you all saw the results here in my presentation. Someone might say, isn't it a big risk to just take away the normal speed surveillance at the road? Well, I would say yes, but why not test both methods together? Because if one method doesn't seem to work 100%, you have to be brave enough to try out new things, new ideas. So a question, maybe some of you have that question. Did we sell any cars on this? Very good question, I must say. It's hard to say if our sales were a result of this campaign, but what we know is that the campaign strengthened the perception of our brand values. And yes, we sold a lot of cars as well. The Blue Motion cars, they were standing for quite a big part of our sales at that time. And today, nobody doubts that then an environmental friendly car also can be fun to drive. And it didn't stop with the fun theory. In 2012, Volkswagen became Swedish champions in touring car racing. And we did this with a car powered by bio-CNG, which is a renewable fuel. And once again, we proved that an environmental friendly car could be fun to drive. And today, we are going fully electric with our cars. Also here, fun is a part of the story. I'd like to show you this car, the ID GTI concept car. That's a car that combines our iconic GTI brand with the new electric era. It's maybe a car for you, Thomas, from Germany, who used to be the owner of a GTI. So let's hope that this fun car will convince even more people to convert to electric. And some last words about the project. Today, fun enough, it still creates a lot of interest. I'm being contacted every year by people or journalists from all over the world. Many of them from Asia, from Korea and Japan. I don't know why, but it seems to be that this project was even more interesting there. We also know that speed camera lotteries have been tested in some different countries around the world. For instance, at the Caribbean islands. And the fact that you invited me to come here to your conference is also another proof of the interest of this unique project 12 years ago. So, many thanks for listening, and I hope you think it was fun. Tack.
Wasn't that interesting? Any questions? We have a microphone here. Bernhard?
Do you have a copyright?
Yeah, in what way do you mean?
If you would like to copy this in Frankfurt, I come from Frankfurt, do we need to talk with you? Do we need to pay some fees to you for your idea?
It depends on how you will use it, but you can be in contact with me and we can discuss that for sure.
So
Absolutely.
You have copyright.
Yes, in a way, yes. But we are happy to spread this idea, as long as you tell who was the inventor of it from the start, so that's okay, yeah.
I think it's fair to name the inventor, right? Anybody else? Questions?
I have a question. Jesper?
Now this is maybe not so friendly, the question here, but you have a wonderful marketeering campaign, and does a marketeering campaign like that get derailed by Dieselgate?
Yeah, Dieselgate came in 2015, and that's another story. I've been holding lectures about that as well. What happened with Dieselgate is that we lost trust, we lost confidence in our brand values. We didn't lose any sales, however. What happened after Dieselgate was that we could be, in quite fast, I would say, a totally different company, and maybe also go faster into e-mobility. And that's where we are today.
Marcus, one of the things, please just say if you have questions to Marcus. One of the things I was just wondering, with the fun theory and the positive results, why are you not continuing? I mean, because it seems that it had like a certain period of time, but the results were so brilliant. So I was just wondering, why not just continue doing it? Does it saturate the value of it by repeating itself too long time? Or was it more like testing a part of the fun theory?
In a way, we continued with this touring car championship that I showed you. That was another project that we linked to this, and that was going on for some years. So, but it's always like this. You can keep the spirit for a while, but not for a long time. We try to use fun in our brand values as well. It's important for us still. So, yeah.
I think it was a great idea, and I mean, coming out of Sweden, I saw the impact on the media side. What kind of impact did it have for, like, say, Volkswagen in Germany and your mother company?
Yeah, that's quite a funny story, because when we started to explain this to our headquarters in Germany, they, at first time, they were a bit hesitating. Didn't really believe in this. But when they saw the results, how it worked, they were really super enthusiastic, and they wanted us to hold presentations on international conferences and so on. So.
We have a question from Sandra in a second, and also from Pat. I had just a follow-up question, then you will get the microphone. I was just wondering, because what I like about also the piano staircasing doesn't have anything specifically to do with Volkswagen, but it also kind of show the social, corporate social responsibility of, like, mobility, exercising, health. Is that also part of a bigger scheme for Volkswagen as a company?
We are talking a lot about sustainability, and we're trying to be reliable also in that area and that field. And I think maybe one reason why we made Dieselgate in a good way, at least in Sweden, was that we were reliable also before that started, because we have been working a lot with these kind of issues.
Thank you. Sander?
Yeah. Good morning. I was wondering, do you also apply this fun theory gamification into the cars? Because I would expect this kind of things, if you put it in the car, people enjoy it every day.
Yeah. In Sweden, we are unfortunately not developing the cars. I think we discussed some options with the headquarters in Wolfsburg, but it's not so easy to impact that as an importer. So I hope our cars are in a way fun also today, also with the interior and the functions that we try to adopt, and more things will come, I hope. So yeah.
Pat?
Thank you for the absolutely wonderful presentation. Really steal pieces and point people to it for some time. However, the first thing that I did was go to thefuntheory.com, and I don't get to something that talks about the fun theory. So has something happened with the URL?
I'm not sure. I mean,
because it's pointing
yeah.
me to something called the Green Book that appears to be coming out of Asia, and I would really like to get to whatever it is you would like me to see behind thefuntheory.com.
Yeah, okay, we have to have a look at that one. Our YouTube channel is still working with these films, so you can find them there. But yeah, it's 12 years ago, so it's not maybe so active today, but we can have a look at it for sure.
Mark?
Echoing what I think everybody's feeling, absolutely brilliant. One of the things I was wondering, the fun theory, you're talking about it in the product, what about the fun theory in the sales process? Were you able to expand that concept into the entire customer experience? I got very excited when I saw people getting direct mail with the lottery. So were you able to take that concept and expand it into the overall customer experience?
Maybe there were some limits in this project as well, and we could concentrate on some things, some issues that I tried to explain here. We are continuously working with the sales process also in Sweden for our staff, and we are doing a lot of changes all the time, but maybe we did not really implement this project to the sales process.
Then we have Jacques.
Hi, Marcus. I have a question because sustainability is also a big thing now in our industry. To your opinion in Volkswagen Group, what is the next thing? Is it electrification or is it biofuels?
Our group and our brand has clearly decided to go for electrification as the target, and going for 100% e-mobility in the future. That's what we are aiming for. But we are also looking into like this kind of synthetic fuels. Our CEO, Oliver Blume, he comes from Porsche, where Porsche have been working with these synthetic fuels because it could make sense also in the existing car fleet to try out some new ideas here. But e-mobility is the main way to go for us.
Any other questions? Two questions, actually one is more like a statement. You have the LinkedIn profile here of Marcus, but you also have somewhere Marcus's either badge to scan or his pretty face at somewhere at the location. So if you want to connect, you can just scan the QR code. So that of course goes for everybody. I think that we have QR codes on everybody except Christian Metz. You don't have a LinkedIn profile. Get it done. Last thing is, Marcus, obviously here, this is the printing industry.
Yeah.
Totally disconnected from what you just spoke about. How important is print in communication from a company like Volkswagen?
I was responsible for our customer magazine for many years, and I really defended this product because I thought it created value for the customers. It was a premium product that we sent out to customers who had the Volkswagen that was 5 years or younger. But sad to say, but we changed it now to a digital concept last year because of many things. The costs were a big part of it. I still think it's a bit sad because it's something special to get this magazine in your hand. But we are working, we need to work in all areas. We work both digitally and we work also with print, of course. So, yeah.
Well, a huge applause to Marcus, and thank you very much for your time here.
Thanks again. Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we'll just have a little change because we're not using the projector, so we will just get a little bit more light into the room. Next up is my good friend Will Crabtree from Tampa Printer, all the way from Tampa in Florida, wonderful Florida. Up to the stage, please. Just need to get you wired. Then, it's a kind of interesting thing because when you try to plan a program that hopefully and is an inspiration for all of us, actually quite a few of you recognize Will, not so much because of Tampa Printer, but because the headline was From Script to Print. and basically the story that Will tell you, I'm quite intrigued with because it has all the things that is part of what I think this conference is about, and that is both cars gamification, it's also about competition in the market, and it's also about pursuing new ways of actually creating a business. And I thought it could be an inspiration for all of us to just have a different perspective. I'm not saying that you should necessarily copy you. That would be dangerous, right? So don't go to too many strip clubs tonight just to try to sell business cards. That's what I'm saying, basically, right? No, but a warm welcome to you, Will, and
thank you
for being here. Take it away.
All right. Well, Morten, thank you so much for having me. And I actually do want to address the gorilla in the room before we start and the whole strip club thing. I would say I was a rave promoter in my younger years, and I also was a DJ in strip clubs. So I can do the strip club voice. So, all right, come to the stage for you right now. We've got Morten. Get your dollar bills ready. So...
You promised not to tell.
I know, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. So the story of my life is a very interesting one, and how I got into print is also very interesting. In Tampa, Florida, strip clubs are kind of part of the culture. They're everywhere. We have one of the highest per capita in the nation. We used to be #1, but we got beat by Portland not too long ago. When I moved to Tampa, I knew the strip clubs, and I used that as a way to generate business. My lovely wife here, Ashley, is with me. We've been together for 15 years. I met her shortly after I moved to Tampa. I did not meet her in a strip club, but I actually met her. She was a model. I met her at a photo shoot, and she's also a nurse. So we got the strip club thing out of the way. We'll dive into the actual story. I was born in Kansas City, Missouri. I moved to Seattle when I was 9 years old. I spent most of my youth in Seattle, Washington. I live in Tampa now, and I've lived there for the last 15 years. I ran away from home when I was 13 years old. I lived on the streets for a year. I was arrested. I went to jail. I spent most of my youth, actually until I was 18, and then out of boys' homes, foster homes, and group homes. 18 years old, I moved back to Kansas City and started throwing raves, breaking into buildings, DJing, and throwing raves. I was breaking into buildings to throw raves, not to just break into buildings. But I was breaking into buildings, throwing raves, DJing, and passing out flyers. So that's kind of how I got introduced into printing, was passing out flyers for my events. I was really good at it. I had a fake ID. I could get into pretty much any club in the city. Everybody would have one of my flyers within a few minutes, and the club owners actually started to pay me to do that for them. So I would go to the other clubs and pass out all the flyers for them. And the main concert promoters of the city actually took notice, and they sat me down and they said, look, stop selling drugs and breaking into buildings, and we'll teach you how to throw events the right way. That's what I did. I went to work for them as an intern. I worked as a stage manager, a production manager. I went on tours. I threw my own events. I was still throwing raves, but they were legal now. We actually rented venues instead of breaking into buildings. I actually had off-duty police officers as security. I did one of my own events probably at least once a month. I worked for their events. I worked as an overnight disc jock at a radio station. I also worked for Camel Cigarettes for 4 years. I did a lot of gamification there where we were passing out cigarettes and we created events and we did all sorts of things like that. I worked for Red Bull as well. Pretty much always had a job no matter what. But I also had a side hustle. I always had something to make money myself on the side. I was always an entrepreneur. Sorry, I talk really fast, but I also forgot to mention I'm extremely ADHD. I've been diagnosed with OCD as well as PTSD. Sometimes I lose my train of thought, but I'll pick it back up pretty quick. In 2008, I moved to Tampa, Florida. I'd spent a lot of time in Tampa. The guy that I bought all of my flyers was in Tampa. The girl that I was dating at the time was from Tampa. She had this crazy ex-boyfriend that was stalking me and attacked me several times. Actually blew the whole front end of my car off. I put a quarter stick of dynamite under my car and blew the whole front end off. So Camel Cigarettes marketing agency was in Tampa, so I'd spent a lot of time there, and I loved it. I went on a run of bad shows where I lost money on like 10 in a row. The weather was shit, and I said, you know what, let's move to Tampa. So the day before I'm supposed to leave, or we're supposed to leave, she disappears. She ghosts me. And come to find out, she actually went back to that guy, and they got married and had kids, and I don't really know much more of the story after that. But I'm so glad that that happened, because if not, I wouldn't have met my amazing wife, Ashley. So my car on a trailer blown up on the back of a U-Haul. I drive cross-country by myself and roll into Tampa in October of 2008. So I went to work for the printing company that I had been buying all of my flyers from. They were a gang run printer. Is everybody familiar with gang run printing? Are you all familiar with the roots of gang run printing, or at least from my view, the roots of gang run printing? It really kind of started in the club and the rave scene in the late 90s and the early thousands. So we would buy partial runs to be able to run our flyers, and the bigger the party, the bigger the flyer. So I went to work for that company, and they had a little piece of software that they had developed. It was like 5 pages of PHP. And the premise of it was we give you a domain name and a website, and every order that's placed through that website comes to us, and we fulfill it. Now, the funny thing was we didn't actually own any equipment either. We were just brokers. We were buying press runs and gang runs. So part of my job was to learn how to, or to teach people how to be successful with their website. And I taught myself how to do search engine optimization and digital marketing, and I'd always had a really good knack for marketing. That's why my events were successful. That's why I got so far in the music industry. So I applied everything that I learned to my website, which was tampaprinter.com. So part of my job, or part of the deal for me to move down there, was I actually bought the rights to use tampaprinter.com for $6,000, the last money I had at the time when I moved down there. Applying everything that I learned that I'm teaching to everyone else to my website, it wasn't long before I was making more money off of my website than I was actually working for the software company. Fast forward several years, and around 2010, 11, everyone starts asking for an online design tool, because Vistaprint has an online design tool. Everyone knows Vistaprint, right? So everyone's asking for an online design tool. So I start looking for an online design tool. We can't build one, but try to find one that we can connect with. I connected with a company that had an online design tool, and our little piece of software wasn't equipped for an API. So then I started to seek another software company that we could merge with or partner with. And I found a guy that had a print shop, and he had a software that he'd been developing and built for his shop, and it was very robust, very big piece of software. He was the developer. And I connected him with our current company and our model, as well as the online design tool. We licensed the online design tool. The two companies merged and became partners in the software. So now I had an MIS solution with a CRM online design that was actually built for managing a print shop, as opposed to just being an online design, or I'm sorry, a work from home business. I sold that software into a franchise for a deal worth $2.5 million over 3 years. I actually gave the pitch meeting and facilitated that software going into the largest trade company in the United States, or trade printing company in the United States. They use it as their print reseller program. Sorry, heart's running. I traveled all over the country teaching people how to use the software. I gave presentations. I usually do a little bit better if I've got something to move around with. After all of that and growing that company into what it was, I'd never been given a raise. I had no benefits. I was supposed to become a 10% partner in that company, and they welched. They didn't give me my partnership. So in 2015, I took Tampa Printer. I paid them another $10,000 to actually own the domain name, and I opened a little retail shop. So it was me, one printer, a graphic designer, a folder, and a cutter, and that was it. He did the design, I did everything else. Now, up until this point, I'd never touched a piece of printing equipment in my life, right? So 2015, October of 2015, we did $276,000 in sales for the year of 2015. 2016, we did $750,000 in sales. 2018, we broke $1 million. 2019, I decided to open a second store. So in December, we opened up a second location, December of 2019. January of 2020, best month ever. We did, and we actually did $1.7 million in 2019. February, best month ever. March 2020. We all know what happened in March of 2020. Now by this time, I've got a 3,000 square foot facility. I've got 15 employees and all the equipment that I would need to run a print shop. And in the United States, or at least in Florida, the unemployment, it was actually, they would make more money on the unemployment than they would working for me. And I knew it, and they knew it. So I laid everyone off. I let them all go, and I worked around the clock. And I ran the shop myself because we were considered essential. We could stay open, and we could still operate, but there wasn't a lot coming in. In July of 2020, we actually reopened in June of 2020. The second store never reopened at all. I rehired everyone, all of my employees but one came back. In July of 2020, I bought a building. I'd been trying to buy a building since 2017. We'd actually moved at one point into a larger space. We were just running out of room. So I bought a building in July of 2020. I moved into that building in December of 2020. Never closed for the day. We remained open. We didn't miss a deadline. Moved all the equipment, got everything going. It was a symphony of logistics. It was good planning. I started a marketing agency in 2020 as well. ADD, you know, I get distracted really easily. So the marketing agency did really well. In 2020, we actually maintained our sales. We maintained at 1.7. In 2021, we did 2.1 million in sales at TampaPrinter.com. The marketing agency, which was Guerrilla Gurus, we're rebranding that now to Guerrilla Consultants. It did about $300,000 in sales. So in 2022, I decided I needed to do something again, and I bought a sign company. So I bought a sign company, a 13,000 square foot building. The company had done their best year in 2019. They had just over $1 million. So in 2022, with that company, I did $800,000 in sales. We did $2.5 million in sales last year at Tampa Printer. This year, we're at 3.5 for Tampa Printer. We are at 1.4 for Sign Parrot. The marketing agency is only doing about 200 because it lost my attention. So I've dedicated my resources and my time to the sign company. And really learning signs, because again, never really done anything other than broker signs. And that's sort of how I've built all of this. I'm a broker. I started out as a broker. I still broker a ton of printing. I work in a way to where I can do fulfillment on the short run and stuff that I can do quickly. And then I look for resources where I can get the larger jobs done. So I don't turn anyone away unless they're an asshole, right? I do work for strip clubs, or I do printing for strip clubs, but it's not even a measurable amount of the work that I do. I also do printing for churches. I've done printing for both political parties. I do printing for pretty much any company and everyone that comes to find me. I have no sales reps. I've never had a sales rep. Almost everyone that works for me is a graphic designer. All of the success and the growth that I've had has come from the marketing that I do and driving people back to my company. If you search online for anything Tampa related, I'm the first result. I have the highest reviews. I have the most reviews. I'm there in the paid results, the organic results, as well as the map results. So I know in Europe it's not polite to talk about how much money you make or you know, all of that. And I don't do that or speak to that to flaunt or to brag. I do it to put it in perspective. I came from literally nothing. I fought and I tried and I failed so many times, failed so much, had so many ideas that I would love to share with you that just blew up, right? Or not in a good way. So failure is what spawns success, right? You have to fail, you have to try, you have to be willing to take risks in order to have success. If you're not failing, then you're not trying. What's happening in your life right now, what's happening to you right now is your story, right? And not too long from now, that'll just become a chapter in the story of your life. And far, far away, long time from now, it'll be nothing more than a footnote, right? So today you've heard my footnotes. But what you have to remember is that no matter what you're going through right now, it's going to get better. You have to get through it, right? And on the other end, you'll be successful as long as you continue to try and fail. And that's me.
So disappointed. I thought you made more than $3 million in strip clubs, and that is not even near, right? So, any questions? Of course, that's so nice.
What's your next big step? Do you have any dreams, selling your company to go to the beach, or you have an area where you want to go into because you believe in this?
So the software company that I worked for, I was one of the architects of the software from a UI standpoint. I played a major role in how it functions, how it works, what it does, and really operating a print shop from nuts to bolts, back and forward, running the machines, seeing the workflow issues, which I've heard most of you talk about, workflow issues and MIS. The next big thing for me is continuing to work in that space and continue to grow in the software. I use an MIS that I've helped develop and grow, and I have some ideas on how to make a system that will work for every facet of the industry. It's interesting when you have one piece of software that works for paper, but it doesn't work for signs, or it works for signs, but it doesn't work for garment, right? So I believe that there's a way to make an e-commerce and MIS solution that will work for all of the different types of printing and fabrication. And then with that will work for any industry, right? What we do is so complicated and so intricate. There's so many variables, there's so many options and ways that you can do it, right? So if you can crack the nut of making those products move through seamlessly from start to finish, then it'll work for any industry.
Just raise your hands if you have questions. I can't see everybody. I think, okay, we've got one from Paul. Salt Lake City coming in.
I'm not sure about that part. My question is, how do you think about risk? Because it's a very different thing, because you're very skilled at being a broker, right? That's a very different thing than having, a building full of equipment and a bunch of people relying on you.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have 2 buildings. I have 36 employees. I have massive overhead now. I started as a broker.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm understanding that journey, and it's very different. Those 2 positions are very different. So you had to consider risk very actively as you consider buying a new company or new equipment or hiring additional people, kind of thing. So do you have a process that you think about in terms of like, okay, this is how I'm getting comfortable with going in this direction and taking this bigger step?
So there's a lot of calculation that goes into things of taking a risk and a lot of thought, but at the end of the day, no matter how much I think about it, I either make the decision or I don't, right? I've hired and fired people. I've bought bad equipment. I've done bad deals. Being a broker is risky as well. You buy something, the client doesn't like it, then you've got to eat it. Printing is infinitely difficult, right? There's so many ways that a job can go sideways. So every job that we take on really is a risk, right? Because I'm making something and hoping that you're going to like it when it's done, and then if you don't like it, then I have to either remake it or refund you. So in the earlier years, there was not a lot of thought put into risk because it was just crashing through and getting anything and everything that I could get done because it was just this survival mode. Where now I'm in a position where I can take risks. I can be a little less calculating and a little less concerned, right? Because I've got that breathing room. So now I take bigger risks, but with bigger rewards, like buying a company in a building just on a whim.
I think that everybody in the industry is always like growth and growing your company is of course essential. I was just thinking that when you look at your company and the growth that you described here, is it based on, let's say, a very competitive behavior where you can take market shares from, let's say, colleagues and competitors, or is it a growing market in your perspective?
So from my perspective in the position that I've been in through this industry, I've seen a dramatic decrease in local printers. There's very, very few, or they're dwindling. When I first started selling software to local printers, it was in 2008, 2009, which was the recession. In the United States, I think it was something like 40% of print shops closed in between 2009 and 2010. And during this time, I was growing a local brand and growing quickly, right? And I think I attribute that growth to the philosophy change of, instead of having sales reps that are going out and being annoying and showing up and calling and being incessant, right? I send out the message, right? And I put myself where people are looking for what I do, and that's what drives people back to me.
And if you walk the streets of Tampa and St. Petersburg, you can find stickers somewhere saying TampaPrinter.com, right?
Yeah, or you would find stickers that they're in the shape of a banana with a little QR code. If you want to check out scanabanana.com, it was a little guerrilla marketing campaign that I put together. So we were throwing stickers up all over the city. The idea or the premise of it was to do a scavenger hunt. We haven't gotten enough participants yet, but what we did is we mailed them a little gorilla and a card with some information, and they had to participate online and social media, and it was, from a number standpoint, we really only put up like 200 stickers. We have had over 1,000 scans. We've had like 150 people fill it out, but I want to do it much larger. And now that we're kind of in springtime, I started it in the summer in Florida, which is really, really hot. No one wants to go outside. So I think we'll rehash it again and put up some more stickers. But if you drive by my building, I have a 20-foot inflatable gorilla actually in front of both of them. So my two buildings are about 15 minutes apart. The Tampa Printer is just outside of downtown on one of the major thoroughfares between the water and downtown. And then the sign shop is in one of the largest industrial areas on a very busy corner. Guerrilla marketing is sort of what I've always done, and gorillas are sort of my spirit animal, right? They just kind of crush through things and get it done. And that's kind of how I've always operated. But to your point, yes, I have a very recognized brand in Tampa. And I've taken massive market share. At one point, you could throw a rock in any direction from my print shop, and there would be another print shop. Now, not so many. Other than UPS stores and things of that nature, I'm pretty much the only Lone Ranger that's an independent local shop, at least the size that I am.
Fantastic. If I say COVID, and I say the skyline of Tampa, and a lot of news coverage because of a painting book you did.
Yeah, during COVID we came up with a coloring book. So what we did is we did it to benefit the Children's Cancer Center. Children's Cancer Center is a client. I've done a greeting card campaign for them for the last 9 years, which is an interesting campaign as well. But yes, we created, it was sort of, when everybody came back to work in June and we reopened it full staff, the think tank was, well, what can we do to engage the community and do something that is unique? So we took different landmarks from around the city and we vectorized the photographs and actually turned them into outlines. So it was different monuments from around the city, as well as drawings that were submitted by children as well as participants in the community. We put this book together, printed it and distributed it. We sold it online. All the money went to the Children's Cancer Center, and then we actually made local news. We made Fox News, like nationally. Yeah, but so if you look me up, you'll probably see that too.
The reason I was asking is just because I think that I mean, whenever you hear growth that is in these numbers, also with relatively few employees, I think a lot of us are thinking like, okay, how can it be possible to do this? And of course, like the competitive situation is changing, and also the fact that you spend a lot of time and money on all the, let's say, the online marketing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people here that are really huge online printing companies as well, and spend a lot of time on really trying to get through. So are you just slipping in between the big ones, or how's that?
I am. I kind of fall between. If you look at the spends that I do in Tampa, and you compare that to all of the large online print companies, I outspend them, just in my market. But I've gotten such a stronghold on the organic side. I own like 500 other domain names that are relative to tampaprinter.com. When I started doing SEO, you could just repeat the same word over and over and over again on a page with a slug, and that would get found, the next day. It's a lot more complicated than that now, and it's continued education because Google changes their algorithms all the time because they don't want people like me to be able to manipulate their results. So that's one thing that I have to my advantage, but I do it locally, right? So it's easier to do it in a local region than it is on a national level. For me to try to break into a national market, I would have to have millions of dollars to invest in SEO as well as other marketing to expand in that way. I do printing for other people throughout the US. People have flown to Tampa and used me, and then they continue to use me, and I ship all over the country. So we're not just a local printer, but we're based, and that's where I do my marketing.
A few questions more is, when you look at, because it's a couple of years ago we filmed from we've been there 2 times filming, and it is, I don't see many of your types of shops in Europe anymore. It's like a walk-in shop where you basically have a counter, you can pick up your print, you can actually get it done very fast if you need to.
Same day?
Same day. I was just wondering because in Europe, the online printing comes one selling parameter is now also like very, very fast delivery times. Is that something that with the big ones can also now start having very, very fast delivery times? Is that something that potentially threatens your company?
Not at all, right? So what we do is we create an experience, right? So when you come into my shop, we have samples all over the place of different types of paper, different substrates, different materials. You can actually sit down with a graphic designer. We have an online design tool, but it's not used nearly as much as our designers are. The philosophy that I have is you have to make yourself available to however the customer wants to interact with you. More and more people are going towards the digital and their phone, and they don't want to talk to people, right? They don't want to interact with people face to face. They don't want to talk to people on the phone. But there's still a big segment of the population that does want to come in and sit down and talk to somebody, that does want to talk to someone on the phone. So one of our slogans is click, call, or come by, right? So we have a very nice, friendly staff that you can come in and hang out and place your order, or you can do it online, or you can call us and we'll place the order for you. We use our e-commerce website as our POS as well. So every order that's placed goes through my website. So whether they do it themselves or we do it for them, everything goes through, everything funnels through one system. So every order that comes from our website funnels into our MIS and our management and our workflow, and that's what operates the whole shop.
Last question from my side, and that extends a little bit on what Paul was asking about the risk profile, because I think that it's also like with percentage-wise high growth, it also often comes as a cost, because I mean you need to be able to finance your growth with more people, more equipment, more anything. So how difficult, how fragile have you been in both buying buildings and companies and new equipment and more employees? I was just thinking that it is something that you of course have to take into consideration, as Paul said, the responsibility to your peers basically.
Yes. So I mean, when I started the first shop, I didn't have $1 in the bank. I started it with a $30,000 0% interest credit card. I leased all of my equipment. Yeah, so I mentioned that I buy these things, but I've done so with loans. I've learned quite a bit about financing and the SBA loans, and I have massive amounts of debt, but I have more I have more equity than I have debt. So I have a net worth, and it's I can actually say that, but the risk is still there. I've always gone beyond my means, right? And that's kind of what I do, is I'll push myself to the point where I have to survive. I have to do it. So I put myself in uncomfortable situations so that it drives me to reach the next level.
Any more questions? Yes, Mark?
I got a loud voice, I can just bounce it out. Okay, so the kids, the young ones coming out today from either design school or community college, that are using Canva, that think everything is about the phone.
Mm-hmm.
How are you getting through to them about the beautiful things you can do with print and how print can perform for them? What are you doing to instill demand out there?
So it's loaded, right? We can do so much. We have intern programs. We hire a lot of college students. We've hired tons of kids out of school, graphic designers, right? Canva is you know, it's sort of the Trojan horse, right? It started out as just an online design tool, and now you can buy printing from them. Canva has a lot of limitations in what it can and cannot do, and you know, on the printer side, we always cringe when someone says, "Oh, I designed it in Canva." But there's a segment of printing being cool, right? If you've watched, there's quite a few letterpress people that are actually buying old letterpresses, and they're making a whole social media a movement out of, not movement, but personality, or what's the word? Influencer, right? Yeah. So I don't think printing is ever going to go away, right? The one thing that I've always said is that printing is a constant evolution, and that's why I've always expanded into. I have a garment shop. I have 813 Shirts, so we do direct to garment. We do embroidery. We do roll labels. We do stickers. I bought the sign shop knowing that signs aren't going to go anywhere, right? There's always going to be a need for signage. So that was my calculated move, in that knowing that I'm going to have more evergreen there than I am selling business cards. Business cards aren't going to last forever. There's so many different ways that you can exchange information. There's a novelty of it, right? But there's the need is going to go away, right? Or it's at least going to reduce. So you have to evolve, and you have to be nimble to change and go with that flow.
Fantastic. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Morten. And hold on, big round of applause for Morten, please. Wonderful event, wonderful event. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, brother.
So that was another kind of stories, right? And now we're going to have a little outlook for how the business is not just being worked on. I mean, so just Patrick, please.
Oh.
Oh, Chica, sorry that I was a little bit late.
He chases me. It's okay. Can we just stick it right there? In case you're wondering, we do this a lot. So he's kind of used to attaching things to me.
Sometimes he also remembers to remove it again, right?
Usually before I go into the bathroom. You know, not always. All right? All right. Just, you just, wherever it works.
I asked Pat to talk to some editors in the industry about Outlook for 24.
You got it?
And it was not the usual suspect, and it was interesting because it was very different outlooks depending on from which continent the assets came from. And that was, remember, that was like the first full year after the pandemic, so of course that was also interesting to see
Hi there.
how my fellow editors are looking into the future. But this time we decided to do it a little bit different, because we thought it could be interesting to talk to some of the successful companies that we've been interviewing in the past year. And I think we covered like commercial print, label, flexible, large format packaging, right?
So here's the funny thing. You know, if you pay attention to the Inkish.TV channel, which of course we hope you all do, Morten has built a really cool business interviewing some of the really neatest printers are out there, and also the vendors who serve them. But everybody is convinced that they have a secret sauce, and they don't always want to share. So we started out with this sort of longer list of people that we hope to be able to revisit and get their updates and say, this printer told us that this happened since Morten was there, and this printer told us that this happened. Yeah, and then I started getting the phone calls back going, yeah, I talked to my management, and well, either we just got bought, we just bought somebody, we just did, and people would say, well, look, I'll give you my opinion, but you can't use my name.
So you can see that Pat has already started, so I would just sit down, but enjoy. Thank you, Pat.
But it's been a bit of a challenge, though, because last year we had the same challenge with some of the editors. We were talking to a bunch of editors about the things that they saw, the future as they saw the predictions, and many of them were not allowed to give us permission to use their name
because their publications felt that their thought patterns were the publication's IP. But the good news is that we got a lot of information when we started talking to people about what had happened since Morton had visited. There are two companies specifically that I'm going to focus on. I'm going to focus on CAMED out of Canada and Broadnax. But before I do that, this has been a year where a lot of us got back together for the first time. There were a lot of shows that happened for the first time that had gone online during COVID or just didn't happen during COVID. And at quite a few of those events during this year, I've been privileged to be able to moderate panels about what had changed since COVID come along. A lot of this stuff comes out in the interviews that Morton does, the things that people had to do to change their world. And a couple of themes came out of a lot of the things I heard at these events that I was working at, as well as Morton's videos. And that is that investment in equipment is seen as a requirement to continue to grow a business. Now, in some groups and in some segments, it's all about finishing. It's the only thing anyone wanted to talk to us about, because everybody's print hardware kind of looks the same. Please don't be insulted by that if you're a hardware vendor of print technology. But we've gotten to the point where the print quality in offset certainly is amazing, but the digital solutions that are often sitting now right beside the offset solutions are often capable of producing as good as, if not equal, print quality. So how do you differentiate yourself if you're a printer? What do you do when the guy 6 blocks down the road has the exact same equipment you have because the local sales guy is really, really good for whoever the hardware vendor is? What do you do when everybody's sort of driving towards that same endpoint and the quality isn't the conversation anymore? Finishing is a really great differentiator. Having other things that you can do besides print is a really great differentiator. It's what Will just told you, right? I looked at these things, so I bought this company, because you're always going to need signs, there's always going to be a need for print, the need for what kind of print may change, and one of the things that can give you a leg up is finishing. So it was an interesting way to look at things. So I had a long conversation with Jim Singer at Broadnax, and they're kind of an interesting company because they have made quite a few investments. And when Morton went there, he was talking to them about their Landa, he was talking to them about their Scodix, they had Durst large format on the floor. They are a company that does trading cards. If you know anything, they also have the 8-color Heidelberg, by the way. If you know anything about the trading card, yeah, 3 of them. This is not a small company. They've got a footprint. But Jim said it was really funny that when he invested in his Landa, and if you want to talk to someone else who has one, Paul Hudson has 2. Funny things happen to the business model. Everything they thought they were going to do, it kind of starts to change. And Paul, yell at me if you think I'm lying. But you buy it with a certain intent, right? None of us buy equipment just on a wing and a prayer. I think most of us don't buy it on a wing and a prayer. Will might. But at the end of the day, most of us don't, right? At the end of the day, and it sort of came out in talking to Dan DeVoe from CAMED as well, when you make an investment in a piece of equipment, there is a responsibility to the business to make sure you're going to be able to make money with it. Nobody's going to hold your hand through that process. Nobody's going to be waiting in the background going, no, it's okay if you spend $5 million on a piece of equipment and you make no money with it. Don't worry, it'll all be okay. There really is an expectation that you'll do the work with it. With Broadnax, they're doing trading cards and packaging and commercial print. He said when he bought the Landa, he wasn't sure what his expectations were. He had a lot of hope. He had looked at all the specifications. He was really sure that he could put some of his trading card work, especially his short-run customized trading card work, onto the Landa. But, you know, he'd talked to a lot of people who didn't have nice things to say, so he believed, but he still had a little bit of doubt. As they started to ramp up, they started setting records for impressions on a Landa in a day. They were the #1 press in the country on any number of days during the year, putting trading cards through the Landa. So it was a bit of a surprise to him that they were able to get to the point where they're really, really, really picky trading card customers, and they print for some of the largest trading card brand names in the world. We're actually delighted with the ability to get short-run, fast turnaround trading card work off of the Landa, and that helped him continue to change the way his business, the trajectory of his business. So one of his takeaways was that for any printer who is looking at investing in technology, especially the technology that has a reputation in the industry, right? And you know what happens every time a new press is introduced to the industry, whether it's an offset press or it's a digital press, there are the people who are the cheerleaders, and there are the people who are the it's never gonna workers, right? And the Landa machine, when it came to market, was one of those machines that developed some interesting reputations along the way, and a lot of the people who bought them had a lot of people waiting for them to fail. And so the folks at Broadnax, I think, did a really excellent job of taking their Landa and doing amazing things with it. Now, they also do a lot of really interesting work that it made me giggle. So one of the things, they do the Topps trading cards. I don't know if you know the brand, but it's one of the largest brands for trading cards in the world. And so in the US, we know them as baseball trading cards, we know them as Pokemon trading cards, we know that there are a whole different sectors. If you know a 10-year-old boy in the US, they probably have a pocket full of these cards. And the brands that create them are very, very picky about them. And he said that as he's looking forward, he feels like he's made good decisions. He's spent a lot to get to where he is right now, but the next thing he needs to do is look at finishing. And it was an interesting circle that got created when he said that, because today he goes through very manual processes. He doesn't really have what you'd call an automated shop. It's not super end-to-end workflow automation. There's an awful lot of manual work that's being done there. And for him, the next phase is to look at maybe something like a Hicon that might allow him to do some really fancy work, or to do other kinds of die cuts and offer some unique aspects to the trading cards that he does. So one of my big takeaways from talking to quite a few of the printers that Morten's interviewed was that they're all looking in that finishing direction. So if you are one of the purveyors of printing finishing solutions, your 2024 through 2027 ought to be pretty bright. If you are a purveyor of the people who make the printing equipment, you're going to start to need to look for options and features that are going to help you differentiate your solution outside of print quality, because print quality is just assumed by most of the printers that we've been talking to. So the other printer that we spent a lot of time with was Dan DeVoe from Commod. And one of the things that he said just absolutely, it rang very, very true. He said, hang on, I don't want to misquote him. He said, nobody's going to come hold your hand if you make a bad decision about making an investment. because you can't just assume everything's going to be all right. You know when you buy a press or you buy any piece of equipment that you're going to have to understand the data behind that device. He's the only printer I talked to of everybody that actually focused on data in making decisions about what he was going to invest in and to continue to test whether his decision had been a good one. He's one of the few printers that actually seem to get that you don't just buy a piece of equipment based on the specifications and then hope it's actually delivering for you month on month, year on year. What he's done is put a process into Commod where he is constantly looking at everything every press that he owns does and every piece of finishing equipment does. He said that it's got to make money because you can't go into debt frivolously. Okay, some people are a little less risk averse than others. I think Dan is not so much risk averse, he's just very data centric. So he's an EFI shop, he's an AGFA shop, they are a large format shop, but what he knows is exactly how much he's making every single day. He knows his cost of goods sold, and he knows his profit for every single piece that they sell and everything that gets delivered, because he's constantly testing what they charged against what they estimated and what his actual costs are. And one thing he noticed is that about 6 months into the year, this year, all of a sudden they saw their costs change and he saw his profits going down. And I mean, on one day, he said it was a blip, but then he noticed it over a couple of weeks. And it was only because he was watching every single day, watching the numbers, watching the data every single day, that he realized that some cost of goods sold had changed. Inventory cost had changed. Some of his consumable costs had changed on his EFI and on his AGFA almost at the same time. If he hadn't been watching it daily, it might have taken him up to 3 months to figure it out. So because before he started watching the data, they would kind of look at their prices every 3 to 6 months. Because he was watching it every day, he was able to do a course correction almost immediately and get everything back on track. So if I took anything away from Dan and Commod and the just amazing things that he's done in their shop, it was that a conversation we've had in the workflow space and the print MIS space about the importance of gathering data off of all the equipment, but not just gathering it, actually using it to help us make the businesses better. It's going to be a louder conversation over the next year or so. More printers are becoming aware of the importance of data in their business, and more printers are looking for software solutions. Will, your next thing, or the continuation of your thing. They're looking for these solutions that are going to help them understand their business intensely at a very low level of data on a daily basis, not on a monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, or yearly basis. So, big takeaways. If you are a vendor in our industry, please make sure that your solution can feed your customer data that they can use to help run their business better. If you are a printer in our industry, please push your vendors to ensure that you can get data you need to run your business, because we're in too tight of a market. No matter how successful you are, this is a tight market, it's a competitive market, and you're going to need that data to help remain successful, to make better decisions about what companies you buy and merge with, what pieces of your business you sell off, and what vendors you do business with. If your vendor can't help, if their solutions can't provide you data to run your business, maybe look for a different solution. That's what I learned.
Thank you very much, Pat and Drew. Any questions?
Maybe applause first.
And applause, yes, applause.
Thank you. You know where to find me, right? I have a really big picture out there. Yeah, you got a question?
I do have a question.
You got a question?
And I do agree that the data is important and we have to provide data, overall efficiency data, et cetera, et cetera. But what about data connected to legislation about emissions? We do know that that legislations are coming, and they're coming like a steam train out fast. And how do you see that these legislations are inflecting our industry? What is the threats here?
So, there are two vectors with data connected to legislation. One is that very often our legislators, especially in the US, but often in Europe as well, are not as well informed as they're creating this legislation as we would like them to be. As an industry, we do not do a very good job of making sure they have factual data. You shouldn't have to say it that way, but I think we do. Factual data about what the emissions in our industry actually are, what they actually impact, and we don't do a very good job of making sure we understand as well. This is how you end up with legislation that requires you to do certain kinds of venting, certain kinds of recycling, certain kinds of solvent management, when those legislative requirements may not be based on data and fact. The only thing we can do as an industry is try to be better at lobbying and doing our own research, having data that we can provide and bringing it to our legislative bodies. So whatever country you're in, somebody in your industry is responsible for lobbying on your behalf. You may know those people, you may be involved in those organizations, or you may not be. If you're in Italy, talk to the folks at Strategio, because they spend a lot of time and money lobbying the Italian government to try and keep legislation from shutting the printing industry down. If you're in Germany, there are organizations. If you're in the UK, there are organizations. I don't know them in every country, but I can find out. But my big concern is that we're not doing a good job as an industry to make sure that legislators know the things we need to know. There's another piece of data and legislative concern that I have, in addition to the emissions and the greenwashing of whether print is a good business or not. And that is the data privacy legislation that is rampant throughout the world. And that's impacting printers' ability to do business as well. In the US, we just had 3 new pieces of legislation come through that almost no printers know about. They were done at a state level in 3 separate states in 3 different parts of the country. And yet, those state legislations, because of how the US works, means that it applies to every printer in the country if you mail out of state, right? So if you're in Missouri, the legislation in California or Florida or New York actually applies to you. You may not even know it exists. And as an industry, we don't do a good job of making sure that our constituents know what's going to impact them from the privacy legislation piece or from the emission legislation piece. And in the US, we're not anywhere near where the European legislative bodies are on legislating the emissions and the solvents and the recycling responsibilities and just even the chemical handling responsibilities. But eventually we'll get there. And if we're not prepared, we may find that we put a lot of people out of business because they can't afford the costs.
Thank you, Pat.
Sorry.
I think that Jesper was also talking a little bit about the data that comes out of the machines, but maybe Andreas, you have a question. Maybe you also have some comments on how that can be done.
I think, let's start with the question. Let's first start. Thanks, Pat. This was a great insight. And I can't agree more that today every actual machine has to be able to send data because data is the fuel of our industry. I'm coming from this. But
it's a matter of fact that we have machines which are running for 20 years. So the first Millimetini machine was able 2012 to send a JMAP. So there's still existing machines out there which are not able to send any data. How do you see this in the market? Do you see, I know there are sensor kits, there are solutions for this, but do you see this growing because it's a huge expense often?
So I love the sensor kits. I love the ability to go back and retrofit the sensors, the edge computers, all the things that might allow us to get a better understanding of some of the older equipment that couldn't feed data. And you think about the ability to communicate using JDF JMF is still in process, right? There's still a lot of equipment sold today that can't have that conversation either through JDF JMF or through an API. So there are even modern machines that would need to be retrofitted to be able to send data. An awful lot of printers I talk to don't believe in data. Scares they don't believe that data materially impacts them. It's still a growing, it concerns me a lot, but when I talk to especially small, mid-tier, family-owned companies that have been just keeping things alive by, pulling from here to pay for this, investing in equipment when they have to, when we talk to them about data, they go, yeah, we know the machine's capable of it, but what would we do with it? It's too much data to analyze. And I think that I really, really want to see us have this conversation more loudly in the industry of what the value proposition is. But the expense is a problem. If it's going to cost me money to add sensors and then to add the software that's going to be able to read the sensors, who's going to do the analysis of that information to know whether it's appropriate to my business or not? We have to make that easier. That needs to be one of those big red easy buttons for mid-tier printers to handle.
I think there are solutions out. We have one, but I also
I like yours.
This gut feeling thing that these family-owned businesses they have a gut feeling. That
it's a hard sell.
But when the son or the daughter takes over, they are young, they are number.
They're the ones we can sell to.
The ones who are moving, but this is starting to get a discussion instead of question selling.
We can do this more later.
And Andreas was of course talking about SciQ, able to connect all the stuff, right? So
Yeah, and I love it as a solution.
Ulrich?
Just about your question about a climate calculation. I think we had a very high performance climate calculator in Europe, or you can use it everywhere. And we know a lot about this data of CO2 footprint in Germany, for example. But on the other side, if you ask about the footprint of an email, of a social media campaign, there are no data. For example, in Germany, we know we have a CO2 footprint about, for every person in Germany, it's about 10 tons of CO2. And the printed products are about 1% of this. On the other side, there's we call it digital life, the hardware, the software, the internet connections. This is about 850 kilograms. But the data about this is not perfect, and there are a lot of missing information about it. So our customers sometimes tell us, we are moving to digital media because of the environmental questions, but they cannot tell us real figures about this.
And I don't know if you know Two Sides, right? The Two Sides group out of the UK and elsewhere, they work very hard to try and research that, but they find the same problem. What is the CO2 footprint of a Twitter post? I'm sorry, an X post. Or of your email, or even when we post on LinkedIn and we share there. And those are hard to find because person to person, device to device, every single device has a unique CO2 footprint that most of the manufacturers won't share with you. Right? Your laptop computer, your tablet, which phone you carry, or which varieties of phones you might carry. And that's just what's in your hand, right? And then there's everything that's behind the wall. Cloud computing is not free, right? Server storage is not free. And when we used to worry about, when we could see it on our production floors, that was one thing. But now that so much has moved to the cloud and it's out of our visibility, we tend to think it's free of CO2 and free to use, and neither of those is true. But the manufacturers and the purveyors of those solutions don't want us to know the CO2 footprint because we wouldn't like it.
We have a question from Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Pat, since I know that workflow is your superpower, I'm really interested to understand, and because I know you're in contact with so many of the really best companies around the world, I'm really interested to hear what are your finding applications for the rapidly growing AI capabilities inside of print-specific workflow, where you're seeing that being applied today, or where you see the particular promise.
I could have I didn't pay you. I owe you money now for that question. I
accept all
I actually just a couple of weeks ago, I was moderating some sessions at a print conference where we were very specifically talking about AI and the use of AI in the print industry. Actually, I did two conferences a couple of weeks apart. And yeah, we already have people in our industry who are actively using algorithmic solutions that are based on artificial intelligence, machine learning, rules-based automation. I mean, we've been doing rules-based automation for 30 years, right? And machine learning is something that we think of as a manufacturing thing, but print is a manufacturing environment. And the software that we use, many of the smartest developers of software figured out over the last 10, 15 years that there was going to be this growing opportunity to leverage the AI-based algorithms to help make smarter things. So it happens in several spaces in the print industry. It happens in the code development for the tools that we're using. There are a number of software manufacturers who've figured out that leveraging, especially generative AI, helps them develop code faster, fix customer problems faster by being able to run millions of scenarios to solve a problem a customer brings to them instead of having to do it one at a time iteratively and manually. So those things are already being done. You also have people who are using it as part of the user interface. The software tool itself is imbued, and again today, more likely with a generative AI tool set embedded in it to help them build smarter user interfaces. So instead of having to click through 9 screens to set up a configuration, you can do an iterative chat with the user interface and it will build the configuration for you. There are companies doing this today and selling it today. So MessagePoint does it. Their MessagePoint is a CCM, a customer communication management tool that's also used in the print industry, principally in healthcare and mortgage. But they were a very early adopter of generative, of GPT-based solutions. They actually use the OpenAI engine. So the ChatGPT that everybody's heard of, that's actually the engine that they've actually embedded a version of that they license from OpenAI into MessagePoint, and they use it to help customers configure their customer communication environment to make best decisions about when to print and when not to print. The other thing that they do is it helps their customers with sentience testing. So have you ever gotten a letter from your bank or your insurance company that seemed to be kind of rude? Like it just was written in such a way that it didn't seem very friendly to you. I mean, you're a customer, shouldn't they treat you nicely? But whoever wrote that template for that letter must have been in a bad mood that day. And I've seen them, and it can actually cause people to leave a bank or a brokerage if they don't get the right kind of communication. What the MessagePoint solution does is use ChatGPT engine to do sentience testing to help the writer of the communication to the customer determine if it is friendly enough based on some parameters. So they're using it that way. Crawford Technologies uses generative GPT technology in their smart setup solution. It helps build profiles so that you can configure your print profiles faster for the different kinds of paper and the different kinds of finishing that you're trying to use. So it's there, but a lot of the companies that are using AI in their infrastructure aren't admitting it.
Thank you very much. A warm applause also for the Q&A. We are, of course, getting to what everybody has been anticipating for a long time, lunch. Sorry about that. No,
I'm hungry.
Before we do that, Christoph, Matteo, Will, can you please come up here?
Uh-oh.
And also Marcus, of course, sorry. And Elva? First of all, shouldn't we just give these people a fantastic applause for the... Thank you very much. We have a little gift for you guys. It's some Danish design, so maybe you can just give it as Christmas gifts to your spouses or put it in your office or whatever. So Elva, please hand out these gifts. Okay. I'm not 100% sure. I think what I will suggest, because I don't know what's in it, I just know my daughter bought them. And I don't know if it is specifically for females or males. So what I suggest is that open it and do your exchanges before you're leaving each other in case there is anything that needs to be exchanged, right? So again, really a warm thank you for bringing your skills and knowledge and openly share it with everybody here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Morten. Thank you.
The launch starts at 12:15.